Hello, this is a video mainly aimed at male authors who, like myself, through most of their writing career, or at least me, most of my writing career, have struggled with writing female characters that feel like actual girls and women. I remember my friends who also wrote would tell me time and again, you write good, but in this humongous story with 50 characters, one of them is female, and they were always either men with tits or like unrealistic caricatures of femininity. And while I'm definitely not as good at writing women as I am at writing men, I think I've gained enough experience to impart some wisdom on somebody who's like the younger version of myself who I still don't have any idea how girls work in terms of actually understanding their psyches as real human beings, but I can understand their actions enough to write them better than I used to be able to. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first tip for writing female characters is to remember that being female is not generally a large part of somebody's life struggles or identity. You know, in modern novels, women will talk about a lot about how they suffer for being a woman. Their pay is lowered, discrimination, yada yada, mostly when the author's trying to send a message. I talked about politics in writing in an earlier video and why you shouldn't insert your beliefs into the writing. Now, whatever you think, oh, the wage gap is this or that, women are oppressed or not, whatever you think, your characters don't need to agree with you, first of all. They can, but they don't need to. Second of all, your reader also very much so does not need to agree with you, and if they think that you are trying to get them to agree with you, will tune out. And third of all, anytime your character is bringing something up, they need to have some reasonable motivation to bring it up. And usually, at least what I've seen, when women in literature bring up the fact that they're a woman, it's usually either in a situation that's specifically curated to make an excuse for them to bring it up, or just somewhere where they really don't have any decent reason to do it. Usually, while women in real life will talk about their struggles a lot, they usually don't talk about the fact that they're a woman, all they go through as a woman, blah blah blah, unless that organically comes up over the actual course of the discussion. Now, while any woman is going to think of herself as a woman, but while you may be thinking that way, an actual woman going into a situation is not thinking, what as a woman is the woman decision for me to make. She's thinking, based on how I feel about this, usually more so how I feel about this, and women do make more womanly decisions, but they don't think in terms of, I'm a woman, so what am I going to do? They think, there's this and this and this happening, I like this, I don't like this, what on earth is this, what am I going to do? While a woman thinks of herself as a woman, obviously, she does not make she does not make decisions for what action she's going to do on the basis of, I'm a woman, so now this is going to make me do this and this and this. Even if her being a woman leads to emotional states, leads to this and this and this, which does ultimately influence her actions, that's not how she's going to think of it. As an author, it's important to learn to not just think of how you're thinking of the character, what you think the character should be doing because you know that the character is this. What is the character going to be thinking of themselves and of the situation they're in, and how is that going to influence what they would actually do in that situation as a real person? The second major tip for writing female characters is to learn to find the right middle ground between femininity and masculinity. So, when I began very early on with writing, the vast majority of the casts in the stories that I wrote back then, still in the stories that I write now, are male and were male. But the ones that were female, like, all I knew how to write was guys. I could only see the world from a male mindset. I still only do see the world from a male mindset. So I ended up, in order to be able to write them, sort of over-masculinizing the female characters that I wrote, and made them tough-talking and violent and stoic and emotionally constricted in the manner of all the male characters that I wrote. And I know the people say, well, not every single woman is a hysterical, blah, 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 blah. I know there are very masculine women, but that's not the norm, and it's definitely going to come across as unrealistic to a reader if you do what I did, where your book has 50 women, and all of them might as well have a beard. And then after that, I overcorrected. I realized that that was the problem. So I turned them into histrionic sort of caricatures of femininity. And now I've moved toward the middle, still toward, like, if you have male on one end, if you have completely masculine on one end, completely feminine on the other end, and then in the middle is, like, right between where those poles, a woman is generally going to be more toward the feminine side of it, but she's definitely not going to be all the way this way, like I made them at first, or all the way that way, like I made them afterwards. Usually somewhere more toward the middle. Now, I wish I could give more direct advice on knowing where to put somebody in terms of, like, on that femininity to masculinity scale. But there aren't really any techniques I used. I just wrote too masculine, too feminine, too this, too that. And of course, too masculine, too feminine, it's hard. It's even hard terms to use because it depends so much on who the character is and what kind of character you're going for. The big problem in a lot of these cases was how the characters I wrote were very feminine or very masculine in a way that's out of line with other actions that they did, or their upbringing, or the kinds of people that they hang around with. So generally, to know how masculine or feminine to make a specific character, it helps to know how masculine or feminine their pursuits are, how masculine or feminine the plot requires them to be, and how masculine or feminine the people that are in their inner circle are, what their influences are. But generally speaking, when it comes to knowing where to put a character, it's just something you've got to get a feel for. The third tip for male authors writing female characters is to remember that, as a man, the way us guys think is usually more upfront in a way. Well, A, B happened. That means C's gotta happen. Okay, how am I gonna do C? I don't like C, but I'm gonna do it. And I know I'm not saying women can't think in logical steps, but that's generally that's how guys think. More simple ways, more straightforward ways. Guys also speak more simply, more straightforward. Guys usually know how they feel and what they want. So the idea of somebody not knowing how they feel or what they want and then not articulating that is a little difficult to for a man to wrap his head around, which was part of my difficulty in learning to understand that a woman generally, even if she wants something from, say, a male character, she might not actually be willing to come out and say that that's what she wants and that's what she's going for, because she might not know it herself. Sometimes women don't, we've all heard, women don't know what they want. Women will say, we don't know what we want, tell us what we want, when it comes to relationships, which isn't, to be fair, isn't the only way that a female character can be interacting with a male character. But women also often don't fully realize how they feel. Sometimes they might know parts of it, but it's overall murky, so they don't know how to act based on it or how to articulate it. The way I used to write, the female characters were all completely upfront about everything. They didn't really have any turmoil that led to them being unable to fully articulate everything that they were thinking and feeling, because the things that they were thinking and feeling were very straightforward and very simple, much more in line with a man. Because I could not write anything that confused me. Now at least I built the ability, I can write things that I don't fully understand, and I can't speak very, very specifically about them, but I can think, well, she's feeling this, but she's thinking she might be feeling this, and she doesn't know, like, what does she want to feel? You know, sometimes people will try and make themselves feel a certain way about something, even when that's not actually how they feel. But do they even know that they're trying to do that? And this can lead to confusion among the male characters, as it often does with men in real life, which generally make your book more realistic, where the female character can articulate most things. You know, there are women who are upfront and self-aware. They do exist. That's also a scale that you need to decide. How self-deceiving is she? How emotionally tumultuous is she? How articulate is she to be able to express what she's thinking and what she's feeling? But generally speaking, with almost every single woman, at least a little bit of the way she feels and the way she thinks is going to confuse the men around her, and they will not fully understand. They will have to act based on an incomplete understanding of what she's thinking and what she's feeling, because in 99.999% of cases of men interacting with women, there will be no, like, even going both ways, even her fully understanding him, neither party will completely understand the other. And, of course, you may want to write an exceptionally self-aware, straightforward, willing to express and able to express exactly what she's thinking and feeling, which may be more simple and straightforward than how other women think and feel. More male-coded women, so to speak. There are women like this, and they're certainly, at least for a man, a lot easier to write. But not every woman has to be this way. While it does make it easier, you can know things about how a character is feeling, or thinking or feeling, or what's truly motivating them that they don't know. Often a woman will do something for some reason that's like, she will state a reason and tell it to herself, but that's not truly why she's doing it deep down. But she doesn't necessarily have to know that. You can know motivations, know things about your characters that they don't know themselves. So while it's difficult, remember that not every character, not every woman has to be exceptionally straightforward, even if they do end up being that way in a lot of writing. And if you just decide, hey, I can write a different kind of woman, I want to write a woman who's exceptionally straightforward, simple in the way she thinks, more so in the manner of a man, then go for it. But then you would need a reason in her upbringing, the influences she's had, some obvious reason why she is more toward that masculine thinking end of the scale than other women are. Nothing in a person's personality comes for no reason. Now, a lot of the time, when a male author is writing a female character, it's going to be in a story centered around a male character. She's usually not going to be the main character. I have read books by men starring women, but generally, women tend to write books starring women, and men tend to write books starring men. And often the woman exists in some romantic or friendly supporting role. And in these cases, something I've observed a lot is emotional tumult. Not necessarily meltdowns, although I have seen those, but strong anger, sadness, fear, something that leads to them lashing out. And I know people, like, you don't be lighting up the comments, oh, but not every single woman is like that. Most women are like that at some points because of some things. So it's important to get good at writing that. First of all, understand that even when somebody is emotionally riled up, they will not give a 100% virulent screaming reaction to everything anybody else says. Unless they're very, very dramatic, which your character might be. There are some things, definitely, that will get a to the max screaming reaction. Most men can think of at least one situation where a woman has been angry and they've said one of those things and it's gone from 80 to 150 immediately. And it's always entertaining, or at least compelling, the compelling struggle for the male character to go through anytime that happens. But it's important to know what sets this specific woman off. First of all, what would get this particular woman really, really upset in the first place? Because while there are certain things that are more commonly, like if you kill, most women, if you kill their parents, they're going to be upset with you. There are certain overall things that most people really of either sex in society, if you do or say, they will be upset. But often it's more compelling when a character is upset for something that has some specific meaning for them. Maybe this woman was betrayed in her past and really fears it. So if she feels that she's been betrayed, even if she necessarily isn't being reasonable about it, even if what the male character may have done isn't necessarily a deep betrayal, if she sees it that way, then it makes sense that she would react very strongly. Maybe, like, she was felt unsafe in the past. If she ends up fearing for her safety, even if he wasn't trying to hurt her, maybe she'll be angry. If she's very protective, maybe if he puts himself at risk, then she'll become very angry at him because she fears losing him, which doesn't necessarily need to just be romantic interest. She might fear losing her brother or her father or her friend. But generally, a character being upset will be more compelling when they are upset for a reason that is specific to them, and then react most strongly to the defenses that the other characters give, the reasonings that the other characters give, and the things that they say that specifically make sense for that character as things that would set them off. For example, the woman who's really upset by betrayal, if he mentions something that, like, he slips up and accidentally spills a lie that he told before, a white lie to protect her, for example, to keep her from finding out the truth so she would be safe. And she's like, you lied to me? Because that is a kind of betrayal. Then she goes from very angry to absolutely flying off the rails. And remember, from what I said earlier, not all women will be fully articulate and straightforward, especially when they're very upset, about exactly what they're feeling or thinking or exactly why they feel that way. There might even be reasons that she's not even willing to admit to herself as to why she's reacted this way. Maybe no character knows, including her, except for you, and then that's the reveal at the end when she finally realizes that sort of reality about her inner emotional landscape. Also remember that different women, and also the same women in different situations, will make up afterwards after different intervals and in different ways. Some women just stew and sulk. Some will end things entirely. Some will just blow up and then apologize very quickly because she feels guilty because of how angry she got and doesn't want to hurt or drive away the people around her. Not everybody makes up, not everybody starts fights, goes through fights, gets angry during fights, or makes up after fights in the same ways or for the same reasons. Not every woman is every single other woman.